Kansas City Chiefs news just got a little sweeter. And honestly, this one feels like the kind of break every contender hopes for, but doesn't always get. The Kansas City Chiefs just landed what looks like a gift from the NFL, and the whole conversation starts with one simple truth. Their 2026 schedule is shaping up to be far more manageable than a lot of people expected. Now, let's be clear. There's no such thing as an easy path in this league. This is the NFL. Nobody hands you wins. But there is a big difference between brutal and favorable. And right now, the Chiefs News Today conversation is leaning hard toward favorable. That matters. The reason people are talking about this so much is because of the strength of schedule projections already floating around for 2026. Warren Sharp's forecast has Kansas City sitting with the 10th easiest schedule in the league. And that is no small thing when you're trying to stack wins in a season that could come with real moving parts. You're not just looking at a lighter load on paper. You're looking at a setup that gives the Chiefs more room to survive early turbulence, more room to grow, and more room to avoid getting hit with the kind of early season disaster that can wreck a team's rhythm before it ever finds its stride. That is exactly why this Kansas City Chiefs news update is worth paying attention to. And the biggest reason it matters is Patrick Mahomes. That's the name at the center of everything, as usual, because when your quarterback is the standard, every decision gets measured against his health, his timing, and his readiness. The source here makes the point very clearly. Even if the signs are trending in the right direction, nobody can say with 100% certainty that Mahomes is going to be ready for Week 1. Maybe he is. Most likely he is. But in football, most likely is not the same thing as guaranteed. And that is where this easier schedule becomes such a gift. If there is even a small question about whether Mahomes should be out there right away, then having a softer opening stretch gives the Chiefs a cleaner way to handle it without forcing the issue. That is where the Justin Fields move starts looking even smarter. A lot of people saw that move and thought about it in a simple way. Backup quarterback insurance. That is part of it, sure. But in this kind of Chiefs news cycle, the deeper value is bigger than that. The Chiefs gave themselves flexibility. They gave themselves the ability to protect Mahomes if they need to, without panicking, without scrambling, and without putting the season on the line in Week 1, just because everybody wants the superstar back immediately. That is the kind of move smart teams make. They do not just ask, can he play? They ask, should he play right now? That is a very different question. And that's the part Chiefs fans should really lock in on. If Mahomes is ready, great. You roll with him and move forward. But if he is not, and the schedule gives you a little breathing room, then you are not throwing the season into a blender just to satisfy the urge to see him back too early. You can take the long view. You can make the patient decision. And in Kansas City Chiefs news, that is exactly the sort of setup that can quietly save a season before it ever starts to wobble. Justin Fields is there to bridge the gap if needed, and with a more forgiving schedule, that bridge suddenly gets a lot sturdier. So yeah, this is a gift. Not because it guarantees anything, but because it buys the Chiefs something priceless in the NFL. Time. Time for Mahomes. Time for the offense. Time for the team to get itself right before the pressure starts stacking up. And if you're a Chiefs fan, that should hit pretty well because every team wants the banner year where everything clicks right away. But the real contenders are the ones that know how to survive the messy part. Do you buy that this schedule makes the Mahomes situation a lot easier to manage? Just think about it for a second because that answer tells you a lot about how this season might actually unfold. Now, zoom in on the defense because this is where the Chiefs' news gets even more interesting. An easier schedule is huge for Patrick Mahomes, no doubt, but it might be just as important for a defense that is carrying a whole lot of new faces into 2026. That unit is not simply being tweaked, it is being rebuilt in real time, and that is exactly why this Kansas City Chiefs News Today update matters so much. When you lose veteran pieces and then ask younger players and fresh additions to step in fast, you do not need a brutal opening stretch staring you in the face. You need breathing room. You need reps. You need time to figure out who can handle what before the games start carrying playoff level weight. That is the hidden value here. A favorable schedule does not just help you win games. It helps you learn how to win games with the roster you actually have. And for this Chiefs team, there is a lot to learn on defense. You are talking about turnover in the secondary, turnover in the rotation, and a pass rush that is still shaping itself into something more reliable. That is a lot to ask from any group, especially early. Veterans leave, young players step in, and suddenly everybody is trying to play like they have been together for 2 years, when in reality, they are still learning each eyes to the other new pieces along the defensive front and in the rotation. Ashton Gillot has reportedly shown flashes, and this is exactly the kind of season where those flashes can turn into real momentum. He is not being asked to become a finished product overnight. He just needs to stack meaningful reps, show that the offseason work was real, and build confidence as the year moves on. That kind of progress is way easier to manage when your early schedule is not a meat grinder. And if you are the kind of Chiefs fan who likes to see a young guy take the next step before the national media catches on, this is the kind of setup that can make that happen. Then there is the secondary, and that is where this starts to feel even more delicate. Kansas City is putting a lot of trust in new and emerging pieces back there. That means the early part of the season could absolutely come with some awkward moments. That is not panic territory. That is just football. New cornerbacks, new safeties, new roles, new communication. All of it has to get sorted out while the game's alive, and the crowd is loud and the margin for error is tiny. You do not want the very first test to be some elite passing offense with a quarterback who can pick apart hesitation in his sleep. You want a little runway. You want the chance to settle in. And if you're being honest, that is exactly what the Chiefs may have gotten from the NFL here. That is why this schedule projection feels so important. It gives the defense room to gel before the heavy stuff hits. It gives the coaching staff room to evaluate who can really handle major snaps and who still needs time. It gives the pass rush a chance to mature without being forced to carry the whole unit too soon. And it gives the young defensive backs a shot to build confidence before they are asked to play like polished veterans. That matters a lot. Because in the NFL, a unit does not become elite just because the talent is there. It becomes elite when the pieces learn how to move together, communicate together, and recover together. That takes time, and the Chiefs just got a little more of it. So when you hear that Kansas City Chiefs news today is pointing toward a more favorable 2026 schedule, do not just think, nice, fewer tough games. Think bigger. Think development. Think chemistry. Think about a defense that gets a chance to grow up before the pressure is at its absolute highest. That is the kind of gift that can change the whole arc of a season. And if you are sitting there wondering whether this roster can come together fast enough, well, a schedule like this makes that answer a lot more optimistic than it would have been otherwise. Now flip to the offense because this is where the other half of the story starts to matter. A favorable schedule is nice for the defense. and great for Mahomes. But it also gives the offense room to sort out a pretty major shift in how things are going to feel in 2026. The big name here is Eric Bieniemy, and whether people want to overhype it or downplay it, his return changes the temperature in a real way. Chiefs news and Kansas City Chiefs news always pick up when EB is in the building because he brings a different edge, a different standard, and a different kind of pressure. That is not a bad thing. In fact, for a team that wants to sharpen up fast, it might be exactly what the doctor ordered. Now, the important part is this. Familiarity is not the same thing as instant chemistry. Yes, Patrick Mahomes knows him. Yes, Andy Reid knows him. Yes, Travis Kelce knows him. That matters. But most of the roster is not walking into this thing with years of direct experience under Bieniemy's system. That is where the real adjustment starts. This is not about teaching the stars how to play football. It is about syncing an entire offense that has changed a lot around the edges and in some spots changed dramatically. You can have talent all over the field and still need time to get the timing right. That is just the way it goes. And that is why the schedule makes this whole thing so much cleaner. If you're trying to work in a new offensive voice, even a familiar one, you do not want the first few weeks to be an absolute war zone. You want room to breathe. You want a few games where the offense can figure out how EB wants things done, how the tempo will look, how the details will be handled, and how much discipline is going to be demanded on every single snap. That kind of thing matters more than people admit. A lot of teams think the hard part is calling the right play. The hard part is getting everybody to execute the same way, at the same speed, with the same urgency. That takes reps. That takes repetition. That takes patience. And let's be honest, Chiefs fans know what growing pains look like. You have seen offenses need time before. You have seen units look a little off in September and then settle in once the structure started to click. That is why this matters now. If Bieniemy is bringing that demanding, no-nonsense edge that people expect, then this offense is probably going to get better because of it, not worse. But better does not always mean immediate. Sometimes it means you work through a few awkward series, maybe a couple of ugly drives, and then suddenly the group starts to look more connected. That is the kind of arc an easier schedule can support. It keeps the season from getting away from you while the offense is figuring itself out. The running game is part of that too. The offensive line is part of that too. The new pieces, the younger guys, the players who are stepping into unfamiliar roles, they all benefit from a schedule that does not force them to prove everything right away against top-tier opponents. That is the difference between surviving and thriving. When the pressure is manageable, you can coach the details. You can correct mistakes without the whole fan base reaching for the panic button. You can let the offense build toward its best version instead of demanding that version on day one. That is a smart way to handle a team with championship expectations. So when you put all of this together, the picture gets pretty clear. The Chiefs did not just get a favorable projection by accident. They got a setup that could help Mahomes, help the defense, and help the offense all at the same time. That is why this feels like such a big Kansas City Chiefs news update. It is not just about a softer schedule. It is about the timing of that softer schedule and how perfectly it lines up with a team that needs a little room to grow before the games start really mattering in January. That is a big-time opportunity. And honestly, it's the kind of break contenders dream about. So let me ask you straight up. Do you think the Chiefs are set up to make a real run in 2026? Or do you think too many moving parts still need to fall into place? Drop your answer in the comments because this is the kind of Chiefs News Today conversation that gets interesting fast when real fans start breaking it down. And while you're at it, hit subscribe, like the video, share it with another Chiefs fan, and help push Total Chiefs News towards 7,000 subscribers. That support matters more than you know, and it keeps this channel rolling with every big update all season long. Oi, make sure you turn on notifications too, because you do not want to miss the next one.